Hi there. Let's take some time to look at CSV or spreadsheet files and how we can download some of our gradebook programs or attendance programs into a spreadsheet program like Excel or Google Sheets and actually use that data for some analysis. We have a couple of ways of going about this, but just so you have an understanding up front, we're talking about these online programs that record grades or record attendance, and you're wanting to take them onto your computer so that you can do some editing, some sorting, some filtering, some notes, and be able to use that information in a different way or for a different system. So first off, let's take a look at a CSV file, and that's probably the one you're at least familiar with. But CSV stands for comma separated value. And so what that means is that you have options. So this is the way that the file is going to come to your computer so that you can open it in a spreadsheet program. So first of all, you're getting more options here. If I were to open a CSV file from, let's say, my gradebook in Notepad, this is what it's going to look like. If it's just in a text editor, it looks a little bit jumbled. I'll just zoom in here, and you can see that I do in fact have data segments. So notice timestamp, first name, last name, and they are separated with a comma. So comma, separated values. Now in a text program, this is not going to give me a whole lot to work with. I mean, I've got the data, but I need to put it into a system that will actually allow me to do some editing, some analysis. So if I were to open that same file in Excel, it's going to convert it, all those commas, into columns. So let's zoom in again, and you can see once again we have timestamp, first name, last name, and they're in separated columns. Once I separate that data, well, that opens up a whole world of different tools that I can use for analysis. So some simple sorting and filtering I've mentioned. We could do conditional formatting. We could even do some charts and some other metrics if it's all separated. So that's the end goal. We want to get these files from an online platform onto our computer into Excel so that we can do some different or use some different tools. So the first step here is to take a look at downloading a CSV file and not being overly concerned that it's saying a CSV file and not an Excel file, because a lot of times it's just going to go ahead and convert it to Excel. A lot of our programs already have it where it goes straight to an Excel file, but not to worry, because eventually it's going to end up in a spreadsheet program like Excel or Google Sheets. So let's take a look at actually how to download a CSV file. So I'm in a practice Canvas class, and I wanted to show you what it would look like to download a CSV file from a learning management system. So I would go to that gradebook or that attendance that I'm interested in. And then here, I mean, obviously this is incomplete, but the system, the way to work it is all the same. So I'd go to settings. I don't remember how to do this. Actions, export. Okay. So we're in a practice Canvas classroom here, just a sample, and I want to show you how to get maybe grades that you have recorded here into a spreadsheet program on your computer. So I would go over to the grades page, and I'm going to go to Actions and Export. All right, so when you export, it's going to show up at the bottom, usually of that browser. And if you lose it, or if you accidentally close out of this, not knowing what it is, it's going to be in your Downloads folder in your File Explorer as well. So there's another place that it is, or you could re-export. But you can see right here, I've got a CSV file at the bottom that's been downloaded. So I'm going to go ahead and click this up arrow and ask it to open. And I can tell just from that icon it's going to open in Excel. So right here it's already putting that comma separated value file into the spreadsheet program so that we can alter it. So that's one way to download into Excel. I want to show you another way from like a gradebook program. All right, so here I'm in Teacher Access Center and I am in a class. So I would just go and run kind of a typical gradebook report. So I'm going to come over here to my Actions drop down and get a printable gradebook. I'm going to go ahead and run the report, and when I click Run, I'm going to notice that there's a spreadsheet icon here, and I'm going to click on it. And in just a second, it's going to download that spreadsheet right down here. And we go through that same process of opening it, and here's my student list. So I think it's good here to pause for a second and say that if you've downloaded some type of data from online into Excel, you've opened it in Excel. If it is in fact an Excel file already, you don't have to worry about saving any special kind of way. You're going to save it just like you would normally save a file. But if you have a CSV file, and it is still a CSV file when you open it in Excel or in Google Sheets, it is important to make sure that you're saving it as that file. So not a CSV file anymore, but as that Excel file or as that Google Sheet. So I do want to pause for a second and just make sure you understand how to change that or how to do that. So I've hopped back over to that that gradebook that we downloaded from Canvas. And if you notice up here in our title bar, it does still say .csv. This is still a CSV file, even though I've opened it in Excel. I can still use all the Excel tools, but when I go to save it, it's going to ask me if I need to still save it as a CSV, which is going to remove all of that cool formatting that we're about to learn how to do. So what you would want to do is you'd come over here to your file, and you're going to save as. That allows us to change the type of file it is. And I'm going to go ahead and keep it where it is. Feel free to move it to a better location. All right, so you can see right here, save as type. It's saying it's a comma delimited or comma separated file. I'm going to click on that and find Excel, which is usually at the top. Okay, and so once I find Excel, then notice it changed the extension here. Now it's actually saving it with all the bells and whistles that Excel has. So when I hit save, now you'll notice up here in the title bar, it is an Excel file. Next up, let's talk about what to do with this data once we get it into Excel, especially if you're pulling it down from like a gradebook program. You're going to have to adjust some of the formatting to start with so that you can use these cool analytics tool that Excel has built in. And then I want to walk you through a couple of things that I use in my classroom, some different systems that might help you as well. All right, we're going to take a look at the file that we would have downloaded from our online gradebook. And just kind of walk you through some things that I do when I'm wanting to analyze or use this data in a different way. So first of all, you do have a section up here that gives you kind of the statistics. I leave it because it has period 1 and it has the marking period here, so it's great data. What a lot of people don't know is that you can choose where you filter from. So I can say, hey, I just want to filter this range of cells down here, or sort just this range of cells down here, and it will let me do that. So I'm going to show you how to do that in just a little bit. You want to pay attention to if cells are merged together. So you can see here's column B, and I can see that this is all one cell, which is fine. But if it were two cells merged together, I wouldn't be able to sort that. All right, so what I mean by merged is if I look here, this is one giant cell. It's all considered A1, even though it covers B and C. Okay, so if it's merged and you're trying to sort it, it's not going to let you do that. It just so happens that these files that come from a gradebook program, that doesn't seem to be an issue. But I just want to point it out because if you did need to unmerge, you just come up here to your merge and center option on this ribbon and deselect it, and it will take away that merge. All right, so one of the things that I like to do is to separate the names. So notice that all of my student names are last name and then first. I mean, it is definitely up to you how you want yours to look like, but you can, in fact, separate the names without having to retype their names. So what I would do first is I'm going to add in another column over here so that I can split the names into that column. So that's a pretty simple job. I'm going to click on column C because I'm going to move him over. And then a real easy way is just to come up here to insert. And it's going to pop that over. So now I have this nice big column to break those names into. Second step, I'm going to select those names. Notice that pointer is a open cross. It's that white cross. That's what I want to use to select. All right, so now don't get scared. We're not getting too fancy. We're going to come up here to our Data tab. And we're going to choose this cool tool called Text to Column. So it's actually going to split it for us. We just have to tell it where to split. So it is delimited. Click Next. And it says, okay, where's the split? So if you remember a comma separated value, this is allowing us to tell it where it's separating. So it's not actually a tab. There's a comma and a space that's separating the names. And so notice as I clicked down here in your data preview, it's showing the split. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next and then Finish. And now I have their names split. So I can go ahead and change this to say last name and this to say first name. Next up, I'm going to add in a workstation column. So depending on where you want that, I'm going to go ahead and put it right here at the beginning. So I'm going to click on A. I'm going to go back to that Home tab. That's where most of the tools we're going to use are. And Insert. It's going to bump everything over. Okay. And here I'm going to add in Workstation. This saves me so much time because if I have a Workstation column and I can say that this student's at Workstation 6, this one's at 3, etc., I will be able to sort by my workstation. So if you've ever had to go around and give a really quick evaluation and make sure that everybody's on the right page, or you want to write down their homework grades and you just want to check it off, I can sort it by workstation, check it off, and then resort it by last name and enter it back into my gradebook without having to hunt around for a student's name because it's just going to sort. So let me go ahead and finish entering these in so we can learn how to sort. And there's all those workstations entered in. So right now, I think is a good time to pause and look at another thing that kind of confuses people and frustrates us. Our words are cut off here. This is a pretty easy fix. I have a couple options. I can come up here between my column headings. Notice that pointer change. Double click, it's going to auto fit. And so that way you can see everything. Now I can do that for each individual column. I can select a set of columns and do them all at once. All right, so down here I'm going to click on Workstation or the first in the set of data that you want to sort or filter. And so just a quick note here, sorting is just putting things in a different order. And that can be really helpful, like I said a minute ago, with the workstation order. Filtering is where I'm actually removing some of the data, hiding it really, so that I can only look at a certain group. So again, that's something that we're going to take a look at. So first off, I'm going to click in that first cell that starts where I'm going to start filtering data. So in other words, these are my titles. This is what I want to sort here. And then your sort and filter option is way up here, the end of your ribbon. And I'm going to choose filter. The reason why I'm going to choose filter, and notice you've got some change here, is that I can sort inside of a filter, but I can't filter in a sort. So I get more options this way. It just takes less time. So notice these drop downs, those are your filters. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back over here to the left and notice that Workstation has a filter. I can very quickly go here to Workstation, sort it from smallest to largest, and now I can go in order in the room, straight down the rows or the columns that you have in your room and check off that the students have done their homework, or if you're doing some aggressive monitoring, yes, they are where they need to be. And then I can very quickly resort by last name. And now it's back in an order where I could enter it into a grade book. So that is pretty helpful. Of course, you could add anything in here. That could be, online versus virtual learner. That could be 8th grader versus 9th grader. So you can add in whatever columns you want, and then you can use those filters to sort. Another great feature that I like to use when I'm looking over grades especially is called conditional formatting. So the tool is up here, but first let me describe it. So let's say in this set of cells, I'm going to select this range. I want it to tell me which of these grades are below a 70. So I would go to conditional formatting, and I'm going to highlight the cells. In other words, it's going to color code it for me. I'm going to highlight any of the cells I selected that's less than, and then less than what? Okay, less than 70. After I type that in, I can choose what I want it to look like. I can even customize it if you're feeling fancy. I'm going to leave it light red because if they're below a 70, that's a failing grade. And if you click OK, you'll notice that it automatically highlighted those for me. So it found them and it highlighted. The best part about conditional formatting is that it automatically updates. So if this student made up this grade and ended up with a 75, the minute I change the grade, it's changing that conditional formatting as well. So it's going to constantly be going and checking and saying, okay, is it above a 70 or not? The other great thing is I can select a huge range of cells and do that kind of conditional formatting all at one time. So again, I went to highlight cells less than 70. Click OK. And I can very easily see where my failing grades are. Visually, that makes it pretty easy to see, okay, well, a lot of people on this assignment didn't do so well, or this student seems to be struggling consistently. So that visual representation, and it's not just a sea of numbers. The other thing is, when I have them color-coded, and again, that's color coding that's coming from the spreadsheet program. That's not anything that I went in and selected this cell and made it red fill, and that came from the conditional formatting. Once it's done, I can sort, or excuse me, I can filter, use this sort by color, and it's going to put all of those that are failing up here. I very quickly see that group of students that might need some remediation. So you can use the filters with the sorting options, or if you really wanted to filter, we can filter by color, and it's going to hide everybody that was passing so that you can very easily see that these two need some remediation. Okay. To clear a filter, let me go back here. Notice that there is a funnel on this drop down. That's showing me that I filtered by this particular data. So I'm going to click there and say clear the filter, and all of my students return. Of course, then I can also see that there's a line here, an arrow that's sorted, so I can come and resort. So filtering and conditional formatting are really helpful tools when you are analyzing grades or data in general. I also wanted to point out how to add notes or make comments here. So these are more for yourself. But let's say I wanted to make a note that this particular score was a retest. It's just a note to myself so that I know. I can right-click on this cell, and I can insert a comment. And I can just simply say, hey, this was a retest grade. That's just a note to me. And I click away, you'll notice that it has a little red triangle at the top right. And anytime I hover over that, I don't even have to be selected, just hovering over, it's going to pop up and say, hey, that's a retest. Right, so you can add in notes to yourself there. Those don't print when you go to print unless you ask them to. So that can be helpful for yourself. The other thing is finding data that you're looking for, like maybe finding a certain student or finding a certain student's ID number or who's at workstation 10. So in order to use a find feature, you can do a shortcut, Control F for find, or you can come up here to our find and select option. All right, so I'm going to go and search for something. I want to search for my student red. So it's going to go and look for any instance of the word red or of those the combination of letters. I'm just trying to find it. Okay, so I can go and find it, find next, and notice that it automatically came over here, selected that. Cool thing is I can come up here, and this name box will tell me that, okay, that's in D18, in case you're wondering. Okay. The other cool thing about this find feature is, let's say this is a large spreadsheet, or let's say that this is a multiple sheet workbook. So maybe we have a testing roster and all the teachers have their own sheet. What you can do is, as you're looking for maybe a student's name, come here to options, and it'll ask you if you're wanting to search within this sheet or the entire workbook. And so again, if I had multiple sheets, it would search every sheet and just walk me through every instance that it had that particular name or whatever it was that you were trying to find. So those are a lot of handy tools. Hopefully you find them helpful when you are working with a spreadsheet. Of course, you can use them with any spreadsheet. And Google Sheets has the same options as I just showed you in Excel. So that's pretty handy as well. So I just want to recap a couple of resources that we talked about today. First off, CSV allows any type of online data, especially that's in kind of a spreadsheet form already, to transfer to a spreadsheet. So we were able to pull grades from Canvas. We were able to pull grades from our online gradebook, any type of report that you can download there. And of course, downloading means that you can use that data for different things and you can add to it. When you download, it's going to appear in the bottom left of that browser, or it'll be in that downloads folder. Adding in workstations into a simple list can really help save some time for you when you're grading or when you're monitoring students. And obviously conditional formatting is going to help you just look at the data from different perspectives. So hopefully those tools really help, or suggestions help with some class systems that you probably already have in place. And it is also helpful to add in those notes and comments for those different data cells, just so that you have a record of things that you've changed as well. Of course, it's a little bit easier to save a spreadsheet than it is to save those kinds of notes on a gradebook system. And of course, those aren't printed. They're just for you to see. And lastly, we covered how to find data, but I think the big thing there was that you can search the entire workbook. So when we get those giant workbooks, multiple sheets, and we're looking for a particular piece of information, we can use that find tool and search the whole workbook. I really hope that you found some of this helpful and that you'll be able to use it. As always, if you have questions, just let me know.